How do we change the advice we give to people that we typically would about online dating, getting out there, meet somebody, get offline as quickly as possible? That's no longer the case.
Right. Well,
Talk to
it's a
me.
new world and it keeps changing every day.
Did you push record?
Thanks so much for joining us again on Second Act TV. Continuing one of my favorite segments here with our dating expert, among other things, Robert Manni. Robert, thank you so much for joining us again today.
Oh, my pleasure to be here, Silka. Thank you so much.
Well, Robert is the author of The Guy's Guide to Love, a book that the critics have dubbed the man successor to Sex and the City. It's a great read. I'll link to it. And, of course, the host of Guy's Guy Radio, which drops every Wednesday right here in LA. And then, of course, you're streamed all over the place. And we will
Yep.
link, to your show as well. Robert, so thank you for coming back, and we have
My pleasure.
we have some important topics. Our first one on this segment, what I'd like to talk about is an update to dating, how our dating world has changed with quarantine and COVID-19. We did a past segment on it, and I've received several comments that, hey, you guys need to update this, and they're right.
Yeah,
Robert,
it
how is
keeps
our
changing.
dating? Yeah, it's crazy. So let's talk about that. How do we change the advice we give to people that we typically would about online dating, getting out there, meet somebody, get offline as quickly as possible? That's no longer the case.
Right. Well,
Talk to
it's a
me.
new world and it keeps changing every day. And even from the government, we're getting mixed messages. So this is the one time I think that Americans have come to realize that I can't just rely on the government or other people telling me what to do. I have to kind of make my own way. And I think that's the same in the dating world also, that you have to put your thinking cap on here because the rules have changed. So I think one of the realities is whether you like it or not, you're going to have to embrace, if you want to meet new people, that you're going to have to rely on online connections to meet people and also keep the dialogue going. So if you haven't embraced that in the past, and I know, Silka, we always say like we want to get to meet the person in person because you're never going to make the real connection and exchange that energy unless you're face to face. But right now, you're going to have to sharpen up your skills and be comfortable with how you work, like we're talking right now on the screen, because that's the new reality.
Right.
And things will continue to change. But for right now, that's what's happening. So you got to be in it to win it.
Yeah. Well, and what I'd like to focus on really, and I've thought about this, and of course, I'm a producer. To me, this is comfortable. But the more I think about it, and I've talked to other people who aren't, just, well, how did you do this and how did you do that? First of all, the recommendation, I think, for both of us is the first date is going to have to be a video date. It's a video chat. Just make it that. Embrace it. Because now, not only do you not have to get out, and maybe meet somebody you really don't want to meet, or spend a bunch of money on a first date, on a bunch of first dates that don't go anywhere, but you have
Mhm.
an opportunity to get to know this person. Yes, while it's not the same as meeting in person, there are things that how you present yourself on video say about the person or about you that might be even a better way to get to know somebody. Again, I'm trying to embrace it from a positive perspective versus everything has to be in person. I'm starting to be swayed a little bit that this video thing isn't bad.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, the word date, you can define it a lot of different ways. So when you're initially meeting somebody you set up some time, maybe you've had a couple of emails back and forth or texts, or you met on one of the services, and then you're going to have a sit down for like carve out a half hour and an hour. Okay, that's, I guess, the new type of first date. So if that's going to be the case, then you want to prepare for that like you would a traditional date. So I would, make sure you wear something presentable, that you look good, that you feel good, and maybe you have a glass of wine with you or something. Who knows? But it's just in a way, if you can role play it out that you're sitting across from that person in a restaurant or a bar and sharing a beverage, you can have some fun there, and you can certainly get to know the person that way. And maybe you're uncomfortable being on camera and all of that, but the reality is, if you want to do it, you got to have to embrace this and give it your best shot.
Yeah, and there's just a few things, you just said it, wear something presentable. I mean, to me, that of course you want to wear something presentable, or you want to make sure that your lighting is important.
Right.
You don't want to have light behind you. You want to have it in front of you, so you're not washed out. It's funny. When I first started dating Paul, I was still in Texas, and we had a long distance relationship for about 6 months. But we did a Skype call, and I was like, oh, okay, my God, I got to make sure I even had lighting set up. I made sure it was
Sure.
just, I tested with my niece because I never did Skype before. And it was fun. It was fun preparing for that. And then, and I had already met him. I know he's a real, good looking guy. And then he comes on Skype. Oh, that's that's part of when you do interviews from home.
That's my son. He's 7. Sorry.
That's okay, no problem. Anyway, he comes on, and he's and he's sitting like this close to the camera in this weird light, and I don't remember him like that.
Right.
So I'm share that story as just think about how you would present yourself on camera.
Oh, that's a great point. Particularly if you've met the person and you want to kind of recreate that, you have to obviously be mindful about, all right, I want to set this up so it replicates the way we had communicated earlier. If it's the first time, all the more reason why you want to set up an environment that's inviting and is representative of who you are. Now, for men and women, it's a little bit different. For guys, they'll think about, I can put a shirt on. I don't even have to wear pants or anything. But the women are going to want to get a little more decked out and stuff. But, the reality is you're probably from your waist up, you're at home, and, you make the best of it and say, okay, this is a casual situation. But then again, it's not as casual because you're meeting somebody for the first time who might have some type of importance in your life. It might become a partnership. So instead of, for the guys out there, instead of thinking about the shortcuts, just make like you're going out on a regular date. Put a pair of jeans on and put a nice shirt on and be presentable and be open and friendly, and don't be intimidated by the camera. If you need to practice, everybody's doing some type of Skype or Zoom for work anyhow. So practice a little bit and check out your environment and check out your lighting, and even Skype a friend or something if you're unsure about that. But you're going to have to, regardless, beyond dating, we're all going to be in front of the camera, videotaping our work, how we live more and more. I mean, it's not the whole thing, but it is a part of how we're going to be doing our business from now on.
Right,
So
exactly.
you might as well get used to it right now.
Yeah. Well, it's a different first impression. You're making a different first impression. And one thing to that as well, there's actually a lot of dating apps now that are developing, internal video chats. And at first I'm thinking, well, why? We have Zoom and Skype, and then, it hits you, well, you don't have to give out your personal information that way.
Right.
And I think that's a good way maybe for some quick ones.
Hmm.
But I see, and this is my opinion, I see like a scheduled Skype or Zoom or FaceTime as really your first date. And you wouldn't do that unless you were to meet that, in my opinion, we're willing to meet that person
Yes.
in person as
Yes.
well. Then don't, that's what I'm talking about. That is now your first date, is that video chat, and see what kind of effort you can put into that.
Hmm. And maybe you set it up for 15 minutes or a half hour, an hour, or whatever, depending on, because you might have a second date
Right.
on video before you meet in person. Now, there's two ways of going about it. One is we had mentioned briefly, long distance dating. But if you're in the same city or the same vicinity and you have a couple of these online dates, then you might be ready to take that next step. But we can talk about that when you're ready.
Right, right, exactly. Well, and I do want to briefly touch on that here as the new rules of dating, if you will, is in our first video, and in some others that I've seen, it's well, should you, what can you require or request? Should you wear a mask? Should you stay 6 feet apart? Is it now okay to just, hey, we're gonna meet, I want to meet you, meet up with you, but I want you to wear a mask, gloves, stay 6 feet apart. How do you handle that? I
Well, I
don't.
think you have to talk about it.
Hmm.
And because the whole situation has been so politicized, where some people believe more stringently in masks than other people, I think you got to make sure you're on the same page with that. Because if one person is like, I'm not doing any of that stuff, and the other person is, I've got to be covered up and I'm wearing the mask, it ain't going to work right now until this blows over or whatever happens with it. So I think that's a qualifier right there.
Yeah.
You have to be on the same page. So if you're a mask wearer and the other person is in line with that, good. So then you can lay some ground rules. Then I think you have a conversation on video about, okay, we want to meet together. Let's just so there's no to eliminate as much discomfort as possible because it is a new world out there. Why don't we have some agreements as to how we'll do this? So maybe you show up, you wear the mask. If you're going to sit down and have a drink or something, eat somewhere, you can take just like, and that's just like things are right now. You go to a restaurant, you sit outside, you don't have to have your mask. Your server has to have the mask, but you don't. So you can sit there and you have to determine with this new person, are we going to sit at the same table? You want to be 6 feet apart or whatever? Or you can just say, have you had any symptoms? You know anybody who's had this? Have you been tested? Whatever. So I think the point is just the fact that we're having this discussion right now is when you're meeting somebody new and you've had a couple of online, maybe a short chit chat, and then you did like kind of a quote unquote online Zoom date, then you want to meet the person. So you've already got a couple of tickets punched and you're definitely interested, both of you. I think then you have to have a conversation as just as you would, as you said, with a friend. Okay, how do we want to do this? What's comfortable for you? What's comfortable for me? What are our beliefs about all this stuff? And then you take it from there. Because once again, if one person's like, I'm not wearing a mask for anything, and the other person is, I don't want to go out of the house necessarily, and I got to have that mask on if I get in the elevator or whatever. And, it's respect on both ends. But if you're going to meet somebody new and you're on the opposite side of the continuum on that, it's going to make it, that's just one more hurdle to get over. And you might want to put that potential relationship to the side until things are in a different situation than we're experiencing right now.
Well, it's like you said, it's a qualifier. That may just mean this is not the person that's right for me.
Hmm.
Anyway. Well, I mean, we can talk about this obviously forever. It's and there are no real answers other than that. Yeah, obviously we encourage everyone to be safe, whatever
Of
the
course.
health departments put out there. And incidentally, the New York City Health Department has put out, I pulled this up, a safer sex and COVID-19, which is
Right.
absolutely hysterical. And you may want to take a look at that.
Uh,
Robert, I want to go ahead and do a couple more segments with you on,
cool.
what we typically discuss, adapted to our current situation. But in closing this out, is there anything you want to add?
Well, having lived in New York City before I moved to Southern California for like 3 decades, I could care less what the New York City tells me what the guidelines are for having sex with somebody because good luck with that. You're on your own, basically,
Well, to the
unless you want to
highlights.
wear a wetsuit or something.
Yeah, no kissing, wear masks. And if you don't know that, but this is the highlight, is that get a little kinky and do it through a wall.
Yeah, which
You'll have to
will
read
take.
it yourself. Anyway, on that note, we will see you next time on Second
Okay,
Act
thank you,
TV.
Silka. Thank you,
Bye.
everybody.
If you haven't already done so, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. Just click the button right here. And if there's a topic that you'd like to have us cover, you have an idea for us, please go to our website, secondact.tv. We have a little suggestion box in the upper right-hand corner of the site. Just click on that, drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. See you next time.